Well, hello, and welcome to another week of wondering and wondering. What will I get into this week? Let's find out together, shall we? It's Saturday evening. I am home alone. My children are both at their respective jobs, but should be home in an hour or so. And it is time for me to get this vlog started. I am using this time at home, in addition to starting my vlog. I am making a pie with a graham cracker crust. And I just crushed the graham crackers. This is for our community groups or our small group tomorrow. And every week we spin a wheel for the next week that tells us what the theme of our food is. And so the theme was tropical. And I was like, tropical? What? I don't know. No idea. Well, as it turns out, my husband made pulled pork for dinner tonight. And I was like, you know what? In Hawaii, at a luau, that's basically what they eat. Like, you know, they smoke it in the ground and stuff. But we didn't do that. But it's close enough, right? But also, earlier in the week, I had looked up recipes, like tropical recipes, ideas. And I was, thinking ingredients like mango or pineapple or something like that. So I found a recipe for mango pie on the Pioneer Woman website. So it takes mango chunks and cream of a coconut and whipping cream. And you blend all that together and you put it in the graham cracker crust. So then you leave it for like 6 hours in the fridge or whatever. So that is my plan. That is what I'm going to make. So it sounds good. It doesn't sound even remotely healthy other than the mango chunks, but it sounds good. So that's what I'm doing. Already crushed the graham cracker crumbs, so I'm going to mix that up. Actually, I lied. I need to melt butter first. Let me do that. Just a second. Okay, so while the butter is melting, let's chat about what I am currently reading, which is not any different from the end of last week's reading vlog, which makes sense because I finished that yesterday. And I'm starting this today. So that makes perfect sense, right? I am reading The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, and I'm more than halfway through and very much enjoying it. And I am reading Miss Austen by Gill Hornby. So far, also enjoying that. I got a little further in that last night before I went to bed. And yeah, pretty good. So The Book Thief. I mentioned last week already a little bit my preliminary thoughts about it. I'm enjoying the narrator being Death, and I'm enjoying his narrative style. And it's also the other thing I don't think I mentioned, but that has struck me about this narrative style. It's very unique. The author keeps breaking the fourth wall and talking to the reader. And in fact, as Death, the narrator is telling the story, it's like he's literally sitting with you and telling you the story, and he's talking to you. So it brings you very personally in some ways, not totally, but in some ways into the story. So again, I think that's unique. It's just such a unique way to tell a story that in and of itself isn't entirely new, although it is in a sense, because while there have been hundreds of World War II books written, how many of them have been written about Germans living in Germany and dealing with the effects of the war? Not a lot of people, well, I don't know about people in Germany and German authors, but not a lot of people outside Germany, or like, I'm saying like American, English, Canadian authors, when they sit down to write a book about World War II, not many of them are brave enough to tackle, or perhaps they don't have the desire to tackle, what it was like to be a German living in Germany at the time. And I think that there's this assumption that everybody in Germany was a bona fide Nazi at the time, and everybody in Germany hated the Jews, and everybody in Germany was, in line with the Nazi Party. I mean, that's like saying that all of the members of the Chinese Communist Party are in line with the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, they do it because it's expedient for them. It makes their life easier. So I have always been convinced that there were 100%, there had to have been people in Germany, perhaps many people in Germany, who actively disagreed with the Nazi Party, even if they were members of the Nazi Party, or who, even if that's not strictly true, they disagreed with aspects of the program. Surely not everybody was robotically falling in line, lockstep with everything Hitler said. Sure, plenty of people did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish what he did. But surely plenty of people did not. And so I'm really enjoying this glimpse into a family that was not in lockstep with Hitler and his philosophies and what they went through as a result. And it's very interesting. And I would love to read more books like that, the insider view, so to speak. So it helps that the author is writing, I think, from a place of knowledge, because as I looked up last week, I believe he is Australian, but his family emigrated to Australia, I believe, somewhere around the time of World War II. And so he has German and Australian background. I'm sure his family has stories about all of that. So I'm conjecturing that perhaps some of this book is written based on that knowledge, or maybe it's just, he was curious about his family's history. And so he started looking into that. And so that inspired him to write this book. I'm not really sure, but I do find it very interesting. As for Miss Austen, so far I haven't gotten super far, but Miss Austen is about Cassandra Austen, who was Jane's sister, and it's about her getting closer to the end of her life. So we're in 1840, and she's not sure, how much time she has left. I mean, I don't think it's that, she feels like she's going to be dying anytime soon. She just knows she's older, but she has always felt a responsibility, and I feel like this is probably pretty accurate, to be the keeper of her sister's legacy. And as such, she has actively destroyed a lot of the letters that Jane wrote. Now, I think that this book is probably going to explore reasons why Cassandra destroyed so many letters of Jane's. My thought is that it's just those letters were private, and Cassandra was a private person and couldn't bear to have that family life, that intimate personal life, just, shared with the world at large to people who didn't really know and understand her sister. I think it's as simple as that. I don't think it needs to be more complicated or dramatic or scandalous or sensational. I do think probably Jill Hornby is probably going to try and create something slightly more scandalous. I don't really know. Something sort of secret. That's a hunch. I don't really have a good reason to say that, but it's just a hunch I have. I could be completely wrong. So, I'm going to add a little bit of this coconut sugar. Not that graham cracker crust really needs any more sugar, right? Like, the graham crackers already have plenty of sugar, but whatever. We're just going with it. And the coconut sugar adds to the tropical flavor. So, anyway, I don't think there's some deep, dark reason why Cassandra destroyed Jane's letters, but it is an interesting story idea to ponder. What if there was like some, deep, dark secret? It also could be because we know Jane was fairly snarky in the letters that do remain. Like, we get a glimpse of her occasionally sarcastic and even at times mean commentary. It's easy. It's really easy to stand in judgment of her and read her letters and see some of her comments. Personally, I think they're funny. But anyways, it's really easy to stand in judgment of her. But at the same time, so if you read people's texts and emails and personal messages to their very close and personal acquaintances, where they feel free to truly express themselves, I promise you, for one of every two people, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find sarcasm. You're going to find straight up mean. You're going to find judgy. And that's not even every 1 out of 2. That's everybody. Everybody judges everybody on one level or another. So I personally don't find that I can just stand there in judgment of Jane for the letters that she wrote to family members where she felt free to express her own opinion. And also because she obviously had a very strong sense of humor, and she would take her judgy observations of people and make snarky comments about it. Was it right? No. I mean, I'm not saying that it's right, but do people do that? Yes. Does it make them terrible people? No. Of the character flaws that are out there, it pales in comparison to certain other ones. It's a pretty common human failing is what I'm saying. It's a common human failing. So let's not all get up in arms about it. Anyway, stepping off my soapbox about that. I don't even know how I got on that. But anyways, maybe Cassandra was just trying to avoid that response to Jane Austen's snarky attitude. Maybe there was a whole lot more snark in her letters. I don't know. It's just a thought. Anyway, that is what I'm reading this week. As to what I will be reading when I finish one or the other of those things, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking. Well, I will tell you that other books that I need to read are, this seems like a really lot of pie crust for, we got most of the pie crust going on here. I don't know where the filling is going to go. I'm going to have to smush this down quite a bit. I feel like I don't need all of this. That's what I feel like. I feel like this is excessive graham crackerness going on here. Anyway, I have to read Common Sense by Thomas Paine. And I have to read The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Those are my only other have-tos. Other than that, so I will hope to pick up one or the other of those. And I'm trying to draw Deck-of-TBR-athon, draw cards to decide each thing I read. But if the next card I draw doesn't work for either one of those, I'm just going to have to read it anyway. I'm going to have to read one or the other of those anyway this week because I just have to. Because then there's only, there's one more week after that. So I'm going to have to read one of those each in the next 2 weeks. Neither one is very long. Common Sense is probably going to take me longer though, because I think it will be a little bit more intense of reading intellectually. Those need to be read. One or the other of those needs to get read this week. After that, I just have a lot of options for Jane Austen July that I will be focusing on. So that could be anything because I have all kinds of stuff. One I'd really love to get to is the Emma manga because I just think that could be fun. I don't read manga. I just think that could be fun. Other than that, there's some Jane Austen nonfiction as well that I would love the chance to really dig into. So that would be fun as well. But we'll see how that goes. All right, so the bottom is pretty nicely. If I do this, really pack it down there. Okay, now for the sides. Do it in the sink here so I can brush off the extra as I smush it. Okay, the crust is pressed into the pan. We're gonna put it in the freezer. Okay, pie crust is in the freezer, and I'll make the filling in a little bit here, but I just wanted to finish what I was talking about. I have a bunch of Austen related books, including some nonfiction that I would love to get to in July. So those are also possibilities after I have read or at least started either Common Sense or Old Man and the Sea. So those are my plans this week, and we will see in the end what I get up to. So I may regret this, but I'm going to use my stick blender. I have heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to add the coconut, cream of coconut to it. And then blend it with the blender. It took a lot longer than I thought it should, but we have achieved. Critical mass, so to speak. All right, next step. I need gelatin. Okay, I was getting something out of my cupboard. My corner cupboard, you know, the kind with the door that folds. Pinched my finger in the fold of the cupboard door. Ow. Ow. It's slowly returning to normal with the aid of some ice. But now I have finished my gelatin mixture. I'll use it in a minute, but I have mango chunks and cream of coconut, which I'm going to add to the mango chunks. You know, I'm a really bad TV chef because you can't even see what I'm doing. That's okay. I'm not a TV chef, so it doesn't matter if I'm a bad one. Nobody cares. Also pretty sure a TV chef would not be using this for lime juice, but I am because I didn't want to buy an entire bag of limes at Walmart because I knew they would go bad. And I didn't feel like going to another store just to get one stinking little lime. I would prefer like actual lime juice, but you know, they're just decisions you have to make sometimes that aren't always ideal, but it's the decision you have to make. And the recipe just said the juice of 1 lime. So I am totally estimating there. No idea if that was the right amount or not. Okay, now we have to blend the mango chunks. Okay, the blender did not like that assignment. So Vitamix it is. And my son used the Vitamix yesterday and put it back in the cupboard with watermelon guts on the base. So that's just lovely. But the actual carafe is clean, so I'm a word. Anyway, so we're bringing out the big guns for this job. Mission accomplished. Now I have to add the gelatin mixture. Okay, and then I'm supposed to blend in some of the whipped cream mixture, but I'm gonna fold it in because that makes more sense to me. And maybe it's not actually the right thing to do, but that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, 1.5 cups, which is like most of this. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to put this filling in the crust. The crust solidified better in the freezer than I thought it would, so that's good because I wasn't really sure about that part. Kind of thought it needed more butter, but anyway. I also thought that this would be too much filling, but it looks like it's going to be the perfect amount. All right. And then this is supposed to go in the fridge for 6 hours, but it's going to be there more like 18 hours. I think I'll be fine. If tropical was the goal, we have accomplished it. I forgot to show you a picture of the finished pie. So it's already been half eaten, but it turned out really good. And I had leftover mango chunks, so this morning I made myself a much healthier food option with a smoothie bowl. And this time I have coconut and chia seeds and the grain-free granola and blueberries. I really need to eat up my blueberries, so maybe a blueberry one tomorrow. Monday morning, and I have finished The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This was so good. Torn between 4 and 5 stars, and the only reason I would drop it down a star is because of the language. It is very much laced with a great deal of profanity. The only reason I kept reading, because like a certain level of profanity doesn't bother me in a book. You hear it on the street on any given day. Like it's kind of like in one ear and out the other, or in your eye and back out the brain. This one was a lot. In particular, there was a phrase that kept being repeated over and over and over again. That was in part taking the Lord's name in vain. I think the reason it didn't bother me quite so much is that there's definitely a distinct element of foreignness to the profanity. There's a mix of German and English, and then a lot of the phrases that were used in a profane way or a blasphemous way were like foreign expressions, not something that we really say in English. I don't know. I think there's that little element of foreign distance there, which kept it from being enough to make me close the book. But be warned that it is in there, and it is pretty consistent throughout the book. And also it is spoken as much by the two preteens in the story as it is by anybody else. So this other thing that kind of bothered me on one level, I didn't like that kids essentially were saying these things, but there's that. That's the only reason that it kept from being a full 5-star read for me. By the end of this book, I was sobbing. It's definitely a tearjerker, so it's going to make you cry, or if you don't outright cry, it's going to make you feel emotional at the very least. It's very well done. The characters are so well drawn, and the characterization is very well done, but also you really learn to love these characters. Even the narrator, Death, like you feel like you get to know him a little bit as he is presented in this book. It's just, so much of the story is tragic, and it's not a terrible ending, but it's not a fully happy ending either. I didn't love the ending, but it didn't take away from the book for me, if that makes sense. It was a reasonable ending to the story. I enjoyed it all on every level except for the cussing. That was the only part that I didn't really love. So even you could say it was 4.5, possibly even 4.75 stars if I did, quarter stars. For me, it was just that little drawback. Everything else about it, I really loved. I love how it is set in Germany with German people. So many times you read a book set in World War II and like Germany's the bad guy and all the other European countries are the good guys. And what I love is this story is set from within Germany. And I think I did allude to this earlier. I did talk about this. But I do really appreciate that it was a perspective from the inside, if you will, because I know that there were plenty of German people who were caught up in this thing and didn't really want it to be happening, but it was. And not all Germans are the enemies. So I think I really appreciated that perspective from the inside, so to speak. And the author, his parents were German and Austrian. And so this is not a book about them, but he drew from their stories that they told about growing up and living in Germany and Austria during this time. And some of the stories that they had about things that happened then, he incorporated that into the story. It gives it that really solid feeling of truth in a story that really gives it teeth, when you know that there's truth in this story. So I really loved it. I loved almost everything about it, as I have said. So I do recommend it if you won't be put off by the cussing. If the cussing will bother you, don't pick it up because it's going to be too much, but otherwise, I do recommend that. And I forgot to mention that on Saturday, I actually picked up a book. So when I was working for my sister on Saturday, it was a really slow day actually for most of the morning. And so I was checking my email on my phone and I get emails from BookBub or whatever it is that has the deals on ebooks. And there was a $1.99 deal on this ebook called Eat to Beat Your Diet. And this author had previously written a book called Eat to Beat Disease, which I haven't read yet, but I would be interested in reading it. So anyway, I was like, oh, $1.99, that sounds really good. Lately, I've just been kind of interested in learning more about, because the subtitle said something about metabolism or whatever. And so I've been interested in learning more about metabolism and how it works and, how to make it work better. I picked up this book. Well, actually, I clicked on it on Amazon. I realized it was on Kindle Unlimited. I actually do think I'm going to buy a copy because I think I would like to use it for reference. I'm about 25% of the way through the book, but I'm significantly further in through the information portion. Like there are like 4 parts to the book, and I think the last part or 2 is focused on like guides, grocery shopping guides and recipes and that sort of thing, like food plans. The first half of the book or less is informational and kind of setting the foundation, laying the foundation for the author's point, which is that food can help your body achieve its optimum metabolism and utilize your fat storage correctly and all that kind of stuff. Like you don't need drugs or special diets. You just need to eat certain foods that will kind of like unlock the normal activity of your cells, like what they would normally do. And I think his food suggestions are based on his scientific research, which is quite extensive. He's a doctor, but he's particularly interested in food as medicine, literally. And he has done a lot of research in that area. So I found this book and I'm finding it really interesting. And I think I may purchase it to keep once I finish reading it. And I think that there's a lot of good suggestions in there that appeal to me, if nothing else. I picked that up and I have been reading it quite a bit the past couple of days. I'm also still working on Miss Austen, and I guess I'm probably about a third of the way or so through that book and still enjoying it. It's not like a gripping, I'm gonna keep reading to find out what happens sort of book. It's a little bit slower moving. It's more gentle of a story. So I am kind of taking my time with that one. But now it is time for me to draw a card because I finished The Book Thief. So I need to draw a card and see what I will pick up next. So I have my cards here and I'm just going to pick one out the middle. And that is a 4. And I don't remember what a 4 is, so let's go look. And a 4 is author. Favorite author for 1 point, new to you author for 3 points, or multiple authors for 5 points. So as I said earlier in this vlog, I need to read The Old Man and the Sea or Common Sense. I need to pick up one of those. But I don't know that either of those fit because I have read by Ernest Hemingway, but he's not a favorite author. So he's not new to me and he's not favorite. And he's only one author. He's not multiple. Thomas Paine is also not a favorite author. Also not multiple authors. As for new to me, I'm quite sure that as part of one of my history/government classes that I definitely read at least portions of Common Sense. Probably not the whole thing, but I definitely read portions of it. So I don't think that fits either. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick from my awesome pile of possibilities for this number, but then I'm going to see if I can pick another card that will lead me to one of those 2 books as well, because I do need to pick them up this week. But having a fun one on hand is not a bad idea either. So from my pile of possibilities, I'm going to go peruse my Austen shelf and see what I can find. Okay, I found it and I'm really excited about it. And I'm going to say that this goes with the multiple authors prompt because this is the manga classics, Emma. And Jane Austen is the original author, but this manga version is adapted by Crystal Chan, multiple authors. So I'm gonna go with that. And that will be the first book that I am picking. And that is my fun read. And then let's see if I can get a number that will lead me to the other 2. If not, I'm just going to have to read them. So, it's okay. Picking 7. That's a poll pick. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a poll on my YouTube channel on the posts tab. And I'm going to do an emoji poll and see which of those 2 books people pick for me. There we go. That's it. figured it out. So I finally had my piano students for the first time in over a month. And so while I'm out and about, I went to the library to check out if they had any books for sale. And sadly, nothing that I wanted. Although they did have a whole shelf spotlight of America-related books for the 250th anniversary, which I thought was pretty cool. I was looking for a copy of Common Sense by Thomas Paine, but they had two, supposedly, at the library location where I was, but one was checked out. One was supposed to be on the shelf. I went, scoured the shelf, couldn't find it anywhere. So that's okay. I can get it digitally, so not worried about it. I did earlier today reserve books both at that library and at my library in my town, but I haven't gotten a notification yet about either one of them being ready, but those are for the Prairie Trail, so I can wait till they're ready. So then I went and I got myself some coffee because I was close to one of my favorite coffee shops. And I splurged on, they call it a cream coffee. So they've had this drink like forever, long before cold foam was a trend. And it's a Korean coffee shop. So I'm wondering if the cold foam trend started in Korea. I don't know. I'm guessing here. But they called it cream coffee. And it's very good. And then I went to Trader Joe's and got myself a little snack. So now I need to go water my friend's plants, although it looks like it's going to storm at any point today. There is a potential storm in the forecast, but I'm in the area. I'm just going to go water her plants. Probably futile, but no, we're just going to get it done. So I have my first little cucumber growing on this plant. I've had a lot of blooms, but no actual cucumbers growing. That's the first one. I hope he survives. Okay, so today I am going to play a chef on TV. Or on YouTube, which is basically the same thing, right? This is my Little Women cookbook that I picked up in a little free library. And I have been wanting to try a recipe from it ever since I got it. I decided to try the buckwheat pancakes. Now, it says, there's a scene from the book. "May I go and help carry the things to the poor little children?" asked Beth eagerly. Meg was already covering the buckwheats and piling the bread into one big plate. So, the information in the book says that from 1850 to 1880, recipes for these buckwheat griddle cakes appeared in over 100 cookbooks. And then it says, for some reason, buckwheat pancakes fell out of fashion sometime after Lisa May Alcott's day. But I think I have read before that buckwheat flour was more common in America than wheat because there was difficulty in growing wheat. And then it was later in the 19th century and maybe the early 20th century that they modified wheat to the extent that it could be easily grown in large quantities. And then wheat overtook buckwheat as the primary grain. I have cooked it with buckwheat flour before because my son was allergic, but he was allergic to the protein, not the gluten. So he could have buckwheat. I'm not sure that buckwheat is gluten-free, but it is free of the protein that's in wheat that he was allergic to. So I did use buckwheat flour some when he was younger. I feel like the flavor is significantly different enough from wheat that it doesn't necessarily go well with everything, but I do think it's great for pancakes. So anyways, I bought this flour at a local health food store. It was expensive. It was $15 for this package, which is 2 pounds. So that's a lot, but I'm looking forward to using it. It's locally milled, so that's good. I am going to also use my sourdough discard in this recipe. It calls for, in addition to the buckwheat flour, a 1/3 cup and a tablespoon of regular all-purpose flour and a cup of buttermilk. So I'm going to replace a 1/3 cup of the buttermilk and the 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour with 2/3 cup of my sourdough discard. And then I'm going to use kefir instead of the buttermilk. So let's mix it all together and see what happens. First, I need the dry ingredients. Now, I do need 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour as well as the buckwheat flour. So there's the buckwheat flour, and there's the other tablespoon of regular flour. Plus, I need 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm using coconut sugar, teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt. Okay. It says to make a well in the center. Since I'm not using as much flour, there's not much of a well there, but how important is that really? I don't know. Okay, then I'm going to mix the remaining 2/3 cup of kefir with a beaten egg. And then I'm gonna add, I think it's probably easier to put that in here and add that to the discard. Stir that all together. Very good. Pour that into the well and mix it up. And then 3 tablespoons melted butter. Looks amazing. Now to fire up my pan on the stove. Okay, while I am frying these griddle cakes up, I am going to tell you a little bit about the books that I've been reading the past couple of days. I have not yet mentioned I have been reading a couple of devotionals. So this one I picked up, a Prairie devotional inspired by the beloved TV series written by Wendi Lee, who played Baby Grace in the Little House on the Prairie TV show from the 70s. This is a 45-day, I think. No, a 90-day devotional. So technically it's supposed to last like 3 months-ish, but I'm reading 2 a day and I'm hoping to get through it in like a month and a half. It should be going into August for the Prairie Readathon. So I thought that was a fun find. I'm enjoying it. I'm up through like day 15. No, almost day 20. Some of the days are better than others. Some of them, it's more like life advice than really profound theological thoughts or heavier stuff. So it's a light devotional. There's nothing so far that I've disagreed with or anything, but it is on the lighter side. So reading 2 a day is really easy. It just has a quick recap of a very short scene or comment made in the TV show. And then it gives a little bit of the context of it. And then it makes an application and might use an example from the Bible. And there's a Bible verse and a short, like, reflective question that goes with it. So I have been reading that. And then I have been also reading Praying with Jane, with which Kelly at Bookish Kelly got me. And I love that also it is signed by Rachel Dodge, the author. And this one is definitely much deeper. It goes a lot deeper. It's based off of Jane's prayers that she wrote for her family to pray together. And it takes a phrase from the prayer and then looks at it both from the perspective of Jane's life and the characters in her book and how they demonstrated or illustrated this truth that's in her prayer. And then it also looks at the broader spiritual meaning behind it, the biblical passages that the phrase came from and the meanings of it spiritually. For example, the one that I read today was,
And heartily do we pray for the safety of all that travel by land or by sea, for the comfort and protection of the orphan and widow, and that thy pity may be shown unto all captives and prisoners. And then it goes through the verses about in James, where it says, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. And also the passage in Matthew 25, where it says, for I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. So that one, I'm really enjoying a lot. This is a 30-day or 31-day devotional. So highly recommend. This was a great choice for Jane Austen July. Since I had finished my study in the book of Colossians, I was ready to try something new, so I picked up those devotionals. In the poll that I did yesterday, The Old Man and the Sea was the clear winner. I did an emoji poll on my YouTube community posts tab, and The Old Man and the Sea won. So I will be picking this up today. Otherwise, I'm still reading Eat to Beat Your Diet on my Kindle, and I am reading Miss Austen. I was participating in the sprint last night on Jeanette's YouTube channel, and I got through significantly more than halfway through this book. So I've got about a third of it left, and still overall enjoying it. It does take a scene from Jane's life and gives it to Cassandra and explains how that could have happened. So it's all theoretical, so it doesn't bother me. But historically speaking, that actually was Jane's life, but she just made it part of Cassandra's life. So whatever, it's all in the realm of what if. So doesn't bother me. But it is an interesting take on that episode. Beyond that, it digs a lot into the relationship between, and I know this was a rocky relationship, between the Austens and then James' second wife, Mary, who was always a friend of the Austen girls, Jane and Cassandra, but as a sister-in-law, was a little bit of a rocky relationship because of her personality. And so that is a historically documented fact. So very realistic there. Anyways, overall, I am enjoying it, and that is what I'm reading. And now, so far, I have 2 pancakes done. This one fell apart a little bit. Tastes good. Yummy. I don't mind the buckwheat flavor. It's kind of a little bit nutty, and it's really rich and full tasting, and it has more oomph to it than like regular white flour. All right, let me flip these ones. These ones, the pan was a little bit hotter for this second batch, so these are doing a little bit better. They're rising more. Instead of spreading the first batch, the first run I did kind of spread a little bit, so. So that one came out perfectly. Another one. Okay, so let's try this. Cute little baby pancake from the last little bits. Salted butter. Have to have salted butter on your pancakes. And I made some blueberry sauce out of my blueberries that needed to be eaten up. So here we go. Looks amazing. Ooh, very light and fluffy. Much lighter and fluffier than you would expect, being made with buckwheat. I don't know, I just feel like it would be a heavier sort of grain, especially since it's not refined. But it's actually really light and fluffy. That may be because of the sourdough starter and the kefir. They're also not very sweet. There's only 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar. It's good.
All right, it is early Thursday afternoon, but I think I'm going to wrap up this video here because I feel like it's already monstrously long. I have a little bit to say right now, and then most of this week has been a pretty domestic week. Like I've just been cooking and baking and cleaning largely, but tomorrow and Saturday I'm going to be working, so I'm not going to have a lot of time. Also, family's coming into town. I'll be spending time with them, so I think I'm going to finish with some thoughts here and wrap this video up so I have time to edit it and get it out into the world. So, to begin with, yesterday I started and finished The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. And this was for my Reading the Classics challenge with red, white, and blue on the cover, and it has all 3 of them, so yay me. I got it for one of the prompts. I don't know, you probably, you're watching this, so wasn't yesterday for you. It was like a few minutes ago when I said what the card was for the Deck-of-TBR-athon. I don't remember at the moment, but anyway, I read this in 45 minutes max was all it took. So it's really, it's novella, I guess, but maybe more closer to short story, somewhere between short story and novella. And like most stories along those lines, I find that those types of stories tend to be the most literary in the sense of you really need to understand what the author's doing besides the actual story. There's always way more going on because they don't have time to work through really complex plot. They're just working through an idea. And so I read the whole book. I was very absorbed in it. I read it very quickly. I will be honest, when we got to the shark fighting parts, I did some skimming because by this point I was so invested in our main character and I was rooting for him so hard that I just couldn't handle any more trauma for the poor guy. And so I was just not really able to process everything that he was going through at that moment. It was a little too much for me. So I was skimming that a little bit. And I do think I may have missed, some important elements of, what Ernest Hemingway was really doing with the story. But I did enjoy the reading of it. It was very absorbing. It was, like I said, I was really rooting for our main character, Santiago, I think is his name. And I loved his little friend, Manolin. I'm not exactly sure how to say that. Who just looked out for him so sweetly and had so much respect for him. It was a really beautiful picture of old age. I love more stories about older people, and I think a lot of what this book is about is about old age and looking back on your life and processing the things that you've done and haven't done, and the things that you've learned. It's a lot about that, about what you have learned in your life and the knowledge that you have to pass on to the next generation, even if as you get older and your abilities decline and maybe all of your strength isn't there, maybe you're not able to recover so quickly, maybe things are more difficult for you, maybe you are not in a position to succeed anymore in the things that used to come easily to you. However, you still have much to teach the next generation. You still have those skills inherent in you that you have developed and honed over your life. Sorry, there's a loud truck on the road over there. Those things are part of who you are, and you still have so much to offer to the world. And so it was actually really quite beautiful. And in the end, even though it doesn't end on a happy ending like you would think, it does give you a lot to ponder, and there is a lot of beauty in this story. So I was thinking 4 stars. Now I'm sitting here talking about it, and I'm thinking maybe 5 stars. I don't know, somewhere between 4 and 5 stars for sure. Really enjoyed this short, little absorbing and engrossing read for sure. So I'm still working on Miss Austen, although I'm getting close to the end here. I've got about 20% of it left, I guess. And this one I have a lot of thoughts on, but I think I may save more of them for next week's vlog because this one is just really too long right now. But I'm enjoying the story. I'm going to put it that. I'm enjoying the story. I'm not feeling like, oh my goodness, I need to DNF this one. Like I was with the other book that I had. I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I was rage reading it. So I ended up DNFing that one. That was Godmersham Park. This one, maybe has some of the same issues, but not so blatantly and not in such a way that I can't overlook them. So, and I'm able to accept this one as just more of a what if exploration rather than a statement of fact, I guess. And so that's making it a little bit easier for me to read. So, because there are some, like I said before, she applies to Cassandra's life some things that were actually true of Jane. And the one thing that is bothering me a little bit, but like I said, not enough to make me finish it, is the way she is presenting Jane in this story. But I will talk more about that in next week's vlog because this one is too long. Overall, I'm enjoying it. And if you are an Austen fan or a fan of historical fiction, I do think that you would enjoy this one. It's well told for sure, and you really get engrossed in Cassandra's life. I love the perspective through which the story is told. We're getting Cassandra's present day perspective in like 1840 when she's an old woman. But we also get her nostalgic perspective as she's looking back on her life and different episodes in her life. And on top of that, we get the perspective of letters, both from her and from Jane. Now, imaginary letters, they're not actual letters. So I do like how well this story is told through those different mediums and those different perspectives. And it really gives a lot of shape to the story as a whole. So overall, enjoying that. But since I finished The Old Man and the Sea, I haven't started the Emma manga yet. I do want to start that, and that will be next. However, since I finished The Old Man and the Sea, I do want to draw another card so that I can pick up another book. We have about a week left in July at this point. So, all right, here's my stack of cards. I can't hold them on my phone, which I'm holding my phone right now, so I'm just going to draw one and show you. It's a 10. So let me look at my handy dandy little chart and see what a 10 will get me. 10, 10, 10. Your initials in the title. 1 initial, 2 initials, or 3 initials. Okay, here's my sign. So, common sense. Sense has one of my initials. So, I will pick that up because it is time. It's time for me to pick that book up. So, I'm going to read that next. Also, the Emma manga I'm going to pick up. But as for what I think about them, well, I guess that you will just have to stay tuned and watch my next week's vlog. So wrapping up this week for now. Hope you guys are having a fabulous week. Hope you enjoyed this video. As usual, let us chat in the comments. I always love hearing your thoughts about what you are reading and your thoughts about what I'm reading and your thoughts about my thoughts. Just love chatting with you. So let's talk about it in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.